Good evening, everyone, and welcome to On the Couch. Finally, after a weekend's hiatus, the 2022 Premiership race is underway in earnest. Over 3 days in 3 states with sellout crowds already confirmed. We'll give you reason for optimism and concern for every finalist. As the big Tiger champ, Tom Lynch, joins us on the couch. John Brown, Nick Riewoldt, we're here, we've arrived. Finals footy gets underway on Thursday and we cannot wait.
Can't wait for it, absolutely, yeah. Looking forward. I experienced the depression of defeat in finals on the weekend. My daughter's under 13-year-old team got knocked over on the siren gas. So I'm ready, I'm
before
prepared.
Before or after you won the Group 1 race at Caulfield?
No, that was after, so just brought me back to speed a little bit. But how good's finals footy going to be?
That's awesome.
Not sure about the week off, Rooster, before finals. I'm sort of just excited. I want to keep going into it.
Cast your mind back to Carlton Collingwood. Because the fever pitch we reached at the end of round 23, all of the games meant something. We are only days away from all of the games having serious implications. So, Gaz, I hope you got your lawns mowed.
Done.
You chop your firewood.
I'm not going anywhere for the next 4 weeks.
Did all of that? Because we are, as of now, we are on.
Well, look at this. This is what we're looking at here, and they are all fantastic games. I mean, they're all genuine chances at some stage throughout the course of this year. Every one of those 8 sides has been spoken about as a potential grand finalist. If not a premier, it gets underway on Thursday night. I mean, just let's take a minute, because it is an unusual week. I mean, we sit here now and we've got to do a whole week of basically build-up and preview, and no footy on the weekend, men's footy. You know, we have to keep saying that, but this is what we're talking about. So are you a fan or not? I mean, when you go back and have a look at it from the time of its inception, there's one team from outside the top 4 that's won the grand final, and it happened to be the very first year. From there, I know Fags are saying that the top 4 sides lose a bit because of everyone gets the weekend off, but there's only been the one side outside the top 4 that's won.
I much prefer the week. I think it's still a disadvantage. So now it's only been in place since 2016. Previous to that, the only other team was Adelaide back in about 97, I think, that came outside the top 4. So I still think it's a disadvantage to the top 4 teams to have that week off, and if they win, then they have another week off.
History doesn't say that, though.
Yeah, but it's only been around 5 years. History would tell you, though, that the first week of the finals, though, it has been a bit of a disadvantage, having the week off. So, look, everyone's going to have different opinions on it. I believe we should go into the finals, and I'd prefer to have the week off before the grand final, like it was done last year. Now, I know it was for isolation reasons, but you were there, Gary. You were in Perth to experience that. I thought the build-up was fantastic.
Give it a bit of extra breathing space, plenty of stuff to do on the weekend.
I think that's the call, Brandon, because it feels like now we've almost got to give the competition that little sort of shot of adrenaline or something to get us up and going again when we came off what was just an unbelievable finish to the regular season. So I agree with that, and I think you layer in the element of concussion and a 12-day mandatory gap now for games. I think a week off before the grand final would mitigate against that. So any player with any slight little head knock all of a sudden isn't ruled out for a grand final. I think that would be a good lead.
That's what's going to happen, Gaz. Whether it be, pick a name, Dustin Martin, Patrick Dangerfield, whoever the stars of the competition, Shea Bolton, gets a little head knock and misses a grand final. That's when the debate will really fire up, I think, and we just haven't seen that yet.
And that's for 2 teams, though. But the boss was out today spruiking the finals launch, which is great, and he's talking about the fact that going to give Jeremy Cameron the best chance. Going to give Dustin Martin the best chance. So there's players in every team are going to get the best chance to be there.
You can find a way to spin it both ways.
Where are you with it, Gaz?
No, I'd rather roll in. I would roll in. I can see the case, but I would much rather on the back of last week been charging into finals and away we go. But we're going to charge
our job now to get it up and going.
We're going to charge in on Thursday night. Let's start there.
Oh, yeah.
And as we said off the top, we'll give you a reason for optimism and maybe some reason for concern. Brisbane, of all the final teams, are one of the fascinating watches here. So under Fags, in the past 6 finals, they've won 1 at the Gabba, which it brings pressure. I know all the coaches rail against it and all that sort of stuff, but that's a reality right now. So, Brownie, find me a reason to smile if you're a Brisbane Lions supporter, coming off the disappointing loss to Melbourne in that last round. Yeah,
look, I think when they're up and going, especially at the Gabba, they move the ball well, Gaz. And I've seen this in the last 6 weeks. Their ball movement's been fantastic. They had great ball movement at the MCG when they played the Tigers in round 20. But have a look at this. So they've been able to start to shift the line, get some speed back into the game, Gaz, in this last few weeks of the season. Now, they're fantastic against Carlton in this first half, fantastic against Richmond in the first half, and they've showed some really good signs against St Kilda as well. So this would give them great encouragement, no doubt about it, to get it moving, and you have to against the Tigers and try and expose them the other way. So I think the benefit about playing on the Gabba too, Gaz, it's a quick track. so it encourages quicker ball movement.
Yeah, well, particularly when you've got the players in front of the ball that they do, because really, I mean, they've got 6 match winners in front of the ball. The question mark, I think, then becomes how cohesive can that unit be? How much can they work together? How much selfless football can they play to actually try and operate as a bit of a unit and a collective rather than trying to be the man to kick the bag?
I think that's the mindset. I think Rui's nailed it. You know, you can't operate as individual silos, those forwards. They need to work together to try and free each other up. And, you know, hopefully it's Jaden looks to Daniel McStar. I'm going to try and make it your day today.
Can they flick that switch, though, on Saturday?
Well, they've got to lick their wounds after the disappointment last Friday night against Melbourne. No doubt about it, but they would have gone to work on that. And unfortunately, Melbourne are just probably in their heads a little bit at the moment, Gaz, but they need to be able to flick that switch.
This was meant to be their year, though, really. So when you look off the last few years where they've had just glorious opportunities at home, all of that sort of stuff, this was meant to be their year, and they're coming from as far back as they have in any of the past 3 years.
They finished outside the top 5, outside the top 4. And the concern this year, compared to other years, Gaz, is behind the footy. So defensively, they're allowing scores. They're the number 1 scoring team in the competition, but they're getting heavily scored against far too often, I think, and in shortest periods of time. So have a look at that. So the score, opposition goes into their forward 50. The Lions are a 16th in the competition. Now, that doesn't indicate that you're on track to win a premiership with those sort of numbers. So they need to correct that and need to correct that quickly. Behind the ball, individuals are struggling. Harris Andrews has been battling a little bit. Darcy Gardner's been battling. Now, maybe they're trying to cover for each other. There's a few injuries back there. We know Ainsworth's not there. Starswich was injured recently. So they've had a few issues there behind the footy, Gaz, but they just don't look like the cohesive unit at the moment.
Yeah, I don't want Brisbane Lions supporters, and they won't. They'll go with some optimism, but you're talking behind the footy. My concern is at the other end as well. I mean, it's marked the footy or it comes out pretty quickly for those blokes. So if you're talking the 3 big boys, and we've got Tommy Lynch coming up in a moment. Marcus Adams is an out too, which is another big issue. We'll talk about that with Johnny Ralph. But their ability to keep the footy inside their forward 50 and not allow transition's been a real issue as well. So there's some challenges for this side.
We've spoken about the Lions. Their forwards are there to kick goals mainly. So not great. Like Melbourne, Collingwood, Geelong's forwards who get up and down the field to support the contest, Gaz. The concern we've got a little bit of the Lions. They've been opened up on the spread. So Richmond have cleaned them up on the turnover in the past. So can they run all day with the Tigers? That is a big concern. When you look at some of those names, Bolton, Baker, Prestia, Sonchi's done well, Ross, Rioli, Castagna, if he did play, can the Lions match that sort of spread from the contest? And that's the query on them.
Last one on the Lions, 1-5, their finals record over the past 3 years. Can they now go and win 4 on the trot? Or on the way to a premiership?
Not for me.
It's a huge ask.
Not for me, but they have beaten Richmond up there previously, and they'll have to find a way. I just can't trust their big forwards. And if I'm sitting here on next Monday and Joe's kicked 5 and Hipwood's contested well and they've get the footy in, then all good and well. But they're playing against a side that can bring a smile to your face, and they bring a smile to the face at the right time, and that's the Richmond Footy Club. So and you don't have to work too hard to find out reasons for the Tiger supporters to have this sense of optimism right now.
Well, I mean, it's almost similar to Brisbane in the fact that they've got the match winners in front of the ball. They are moving the ball as well as they have, really. I mean, when we've spoken about Richmond in the past, it's been on the back of their defensive attributes. It's flipped around a little bit. They're not as strong as they were defensively, but I think with the footy in hand, they're much more potent. The difference, I think, between the forward lines when you're looking at them is I think the Richmond forward line is as complete when you look at the attributes of the players. So you've got like the craft of someone like Riewoldt, you've got the power of Lynch, you've got the flair of Bolton, you've got the pressure. Like it is a very, very well balanced front half.
Yeah, no, and the concern for me, if I'm a Lions, if you're doing strategy for the Lions, is Dustin Martin comes in. Now, we know he's probably not going to be...
It's a fair wild card.
That's right. He did kick 6 against them in a final in 2019 when they just opened up the forward 50. So the concern is the matchups, because we know Adams is not there. Gardner and Andrews and Jack Payne are going to be busy. Maybe Starswich is busy on a Bolton type as well. So all of a sudden, if the Tigers see a weakness and they just slide Dusty forward and say, that's right, we'll just ease you back in and give you the goal square.
Well, I think the beauty for this, Richmond, for supporters, is that he is a genuine bonus. They don't come into this side saying, hey, it's Dusty or bust.
Yeah.
They come in going, Shea Bolton's in career best form, Cumberland hits the scoreboard, Tom Lynch is going to join us as playing as good a footy as he has. Morris Rioli's just this wild card that they're throwing in. So Dustin just comes in as cream.
It's a free swing for a team that has never needed a free swing.
No.
And that's why they're so dangerous. They're like the player in the draw that everyone looks at and thinks, gee, I hope someone takes care of them for me.
The worry is, we're talking about the Shea Bolton matchup. Bolton's an absolute star. Last time they met, he absolutely just dominated Gaz. So when we talk about matchups, I'm concerned about Martin coming in because you don't have Ainsworth, lost him to suspension. So he probably maybe played on Bolton. So now you got Starcevich. What do you do with him? Do you play him on Martin or do you play him on Bolton?
So I'm asking you, the priority right now, here's Shea Bolton last time they played, turn it round.
Yeah.
And he was almost unstoppable, whether it's forward or when he went into the midfield as well. So right now, is your best, if it is Starcevich, for instance, do you give him to Bolton or do you give him to Martin?
You probably have to give him to Bolton. But the problem is, if he goes in, if he goes and spends a lot of time in the midfield, that's the concern.
And if he puts him to sleep and then Martin gets hold of you, well, then you probably have to just flip it over.
The concern for Richmond, so it's a familiar one, but is it really a concern that they don't win clearance?
Well, it was never a concern in their premiership years. No. So, I mean, they're a team that I think I think they have risen a little in these areas when they've won it. But they were never the dominant team in this part of the game. It was always the turnover game. This stat never bothered them.
It's pretty important, as we know. It's a fast deck at the Gabba. Centre bounce goals are at a premium there, so they'll want to be a little bit better than those numbers. But I think they've had a decent record there.
Demons have got their game back into some sort of order. The back half of the year hasn't been as impressive as the front half. When they went 10 straight, they played a side who handled them pretty well, has to be said, at the MCG halfway through the year. Reason to smile for them. They're a contest team and it's back and it's got a familiar look about it. Last 6 weeks you want to have your contested game in order. They're number one in there from a contested possession differential and they defend ball movement as always. So, I mean, that's been the cornerstone, hasn't it, here? That right there, if you're coming into this 6 weeks ago, 7, 8 weeks ago, I don't reckon those numbers are like that. Now they are coming into a final series. It's in good shape. We know the forward half is still work in progress. That gives you a bit of a reason to smile for a Melbourne fan.
I think it's also the fact that their game is built for finals. So you think back to last year, the type of footy that they played when the pressure was at its fiercest, they embraced imperfection. They don't need to play a perfect style of football. So it's not just those isolated stats. It's the fact that their game in its entirety has never been about playing perfect footy.
And I'll add one more to it. So the midfield last year took them to a premiership, and I think we all lauded it as something really special. They've managed to throw something into that in the last 6 to 8 weeks, or 6 weeks probably, in Angus Brayshaw that is... I was thinking about this all week, and Michael Whiting from the AFL.com, he wrote this story as well. To be able to add him as... And I'm talking... He played on Lachie Neale in this game, so he's taken responsibility for arguably the best midfielder in the comp. So he's got defensive attributes. He finds the footy, and when you just look at this, just his ability to be there at the back when he's needed most. So all of a sudden, you're adding some real stability to one of the really good midfields we've seen for a long time. I think it's gone not under-recognised, but I think it may come to the fore in this final.
Well, he's the ultimate glue man, Brownie.
Yeah,
wherever you need him, that's just where you go and stick him.
Well, it might have cost him an All-Australian because he is the ultimate utility almost. Now, he played a number of different positions and he goes in that midfield when he didn't play against Sydney in the midfield last time.
So he might go to
area, he may go to him. And that's an area where Sydney were able to match Melbourne that day at the MCG, amongst other things. So he's an absolute star.
Reason for concern is, and we've spoken about this, you've been on this watch for a long time, guys, is they've just really struggled to move the ball themselves. I still think, though, when you get back to the way they play, maybe all of our concerns come finals time when the pressure's at its greatest will have been misplaced because they've never relied on perfect footy. Even last year, when you go back to the grand final, out of the plays that Fritsch got on the end of, none of it was really, all that pretty, was it? It was just surge and hack it forward and weight of numbers.
It was. It looked a bit ominous last Friday night, though, against the Lions, didn't it? 115,
they got it back.
115 points from 50 entries, Gaz. So it looked sharp. A little bit of movement off the line. You can argue Lions' pressure wasn't there, but I just thought it was a flex by Melbourne pre-finals.
If you're a Swans supporter, you're pretty happy with where they're at as well. The last time they played against them at the MCG, they absolutely smashed them. And I was sitting in the grandstand watching this from turnover. They matched them physically, and they were going through... this is one of their 3 losses in a row after their 10 wins, but they just looked like they had them where they needed them, and there was no Stephen May. They isolated the match-up forward of the ball. Hunt was, in the goal square with Heaney on occasions. Lever here, you'll see, mate. McDonald played really well, Logan McDonald. So the number may have flattered a touch, but they were just magnificent.
They equalised really well in front of the ball. So they got the Melbourne defenders into contests where they couldn't roll off an assist like they have in the past. Stephen May was missing, but so was Lance Franklin. So there are a number of little subplots, Brownie. I mean, this was all despite Max Gawn playing one of the great ruck games that we've seen. So all these little subplots that we're going to be able to unpack in the lead-up to. I don't know how much we can read into something like that, but if you're Sydney, you're going to school on it.
Their personnel suggests that the MCG, bang, big final, Friday night, they're perfectly suited.
Absolutely, and their game's built now for finals, guys. They've been able to fix up their contest stuff the last 6 to 8 weeks, and their pressure game is outstanding. So, last 6 weeks, have a look at that. So the point difference from
turnovers
turnovers
was
was
question 6 weeks ago about this particular issue, about whether they could fix it.
Well, it was the only missing link.
The right-hand column was fine. It was the column on the left-hand side was a concern. We'll have a look at that last 6 weeks. You can't do much better than number 2. So, and their pressure that day against Melbourne was outstanding, which has really been the backbone of their game, especially in the second half of the year. So, guys, like Collingwood, if they can bring that elite pressure like they do every week, well, they're going to be in the game of football. But, it's going to be tough to stop all the match winners from Melbourne, no doubts about that.
They've been a bit September by stealth, the Swans, but they're not waiting. I mean, they have got enough weapons in their arsenal to really land a punch.
Only concern, the fact they haven't won a final since 2017. I mean, we're scratching and trying to search pretty hard here.
Because they haven't had the group to.
They're not...
but they went to the finals last year. So this group has experienced the final, which always helps the experience.
Righto, we're off and running. Tommy Lynch not too far away. Looking forward to having a chat with him, but we've got some big finals ahead of us.
Look at the gather. The right foot step. This is a miraculous kick. The master.
Build-up is on to week 1 of the finals. AFL 360 straight up after us, and the boys will have 2 of the coaches involved. Chris Fagan from the Brisbane Lions and Justin Longmuir has done a great job to get the Freemantle Dockers in. So huge night tonight on Fox Footy. We're working through the big finals coming up. We're trying to split the atom here. We're trying to give you something to get excited about for your side coming into the final series. And this, from a Geelong point of view, is as clear as we can absolutely make it. So in the end, Melbourne win a grand final by 74 points. So you go back and you compare and you look and you map where teams are at in comparison to the Premier last year. So if you're a Geelong fan, have a look at these numbers. If this doesn't give you reason to smile and be reasonably content with where your side's at before a finals series has started. So defence, whether it wins finals or not, it's been a cornerstone from forever and a days. But you have a look at this. They are in as good a shape for a team coming into a final series from this perspective as you can possibly be.
Absolutely. Tom Stewart's back into the lineup. He absolutely dominated the game early in the season in round 3 when they last played, which is a long time ago, admittedly. De Koning's a star. They just look great beyond the football, don't they? And so obviously you'd be happy with that. They got smashed by Melbourne last year in that final from stoppage, and we often speak about their ball movement and forward of the ball, but I think this is the underplayed thing, the underplayed part of their game, really, which set them up and put them in magnificent shape.
That last bit of vision there was from round 1 when they played against Essendon, and we spoke to Chris Scott that day, and there was a lot of noise about Geelong, about the adjustments that they'd made, and they were coming from a base of being a very, very good team.
Yeah.
So the risk that they took to blow everything up, to blow the program up, to do what they did with their assistant coaches, to change the game plan, I think it's important to reflect on that because there was comfort in familiarity for them because they were very, very good. But they blew it up thinking that geez, if we get a decent spot on the starting grid, the changes we make will suit us come September. Well, now we're there. They've got the number one spot on the grid, and they're as well placed as they've ever been. It's been an unbelievable job from Chris
If
Scott.
you're a horse trainer, they've timed it to the minute. But those numbers for the last 6 weeks against sides that haven't been or aren't in strong contention. So, although if you go back and stack up what they've been doing all year, it holds up.
All year they've done it.
Yeah, it holds up really well.
What about the finals? We look at their finals record. First quarters, early in games.
You brought it up.
It's just been the way.
We're digging pretty deep, aren't we?
Well, yeah, you look at that. That's a poor record, though. That's first quarter goals in their first final of every campaign.
What are you laughing at, Rooster? That's not something you're going to be too happy with.
All right, well, of course you're not happy about it.
So in all those finals have kicked less than 10 goals, so it's not going to get it done, is it? You know, especially not in the modern game. However, I think it's different this year. There's no doubt they've improved their ball movement. They're moving the ball faster, so I think they're getting greater territory, guys. So, but that is hanging over their head.
Yeah, they're in good shape, Rui. We had to find something.
No, we had to find something. You're right. What about the talk that this is it? They're all chips in, so they have to get it done this time.
We've said that every year.
We've said that every year. So they go and get Dangerfield. They're all chips in. Then they go and get Jeremy Cameron. They're all chips in.
Yeah.
Then they blow up the program, assistant coaches game style.
They went and got Stengel, but they weren't all chips in. And have a look at his done.
So I refuse to buy into this is it, or if it's now or never, because they just keep finding a way.
Do you think we'd be talking about Collingwood as the side that they're going to play in this qualifying final? I mean, if you did, you're a liar. No, let me say that, because I don't... Well, yeah, after 14 weeks, you started to talk about them, so well done.
He's just pumping his tyres up there.
Did you see their head wobble then?
I'm glad I was away for that episode. You was too. But it's been pretty impressive, though, guys.
It's been brilliant. It's been the great story of the year. I say that unashamedly, the way they played their footy.
Is it on the back of, though, no matter what level of coaching you do, whether it be under 13s, Gaz, whether it be the amateur football somewhere, what's the one thing you want to ask from your players?
Have a crack.
Have a crack.
Have a crack, mate.
Pressure up. Yep. Have a crack and make it hard for the opposition to score. And that's what Collingwood do, don't they? Every week they just bring an unbelievable pressure that puts a huge amount of stress on the opposition and to force them into mistakes. And that's a really good ingredient for finals football, if you're able to bring that on consistent level.
And they did it early in the piece. They played Geelong early in the season, so we were still trying to get our head around the fact that maybe, I don't think anyone, even at round 3, was starting to think about them as a potential finalist, let alone a top 4 team. But they had moments. They lost this game eventually, having dominated for much of the game. But there were signs through this of what we saw for the next 18 weeks.
Well, it's you look at the 12-week run where they've done what they've done, the 12 close games, and so you get to 6 games and you think, well, it's not possible to keep going. You get to 10, it's not possible. You get to 12. I mean, is 16 in the realm? Is 15, 16 in the realms?
Well,
I mean, they're better than just an average team that's won close games. They're so much better than that, clearly.
There's something intangible about it, which is real and intangible and real. The pressure rating, so, people always ask me what it is. Don't worry about what it is, but when it's up over 200, you're in a finals-like game. And for 3 quarters, or then the third quarter they won, and then they dropped away. Yeah. Since that time, their ability to maintain that throughout a course of a game has been so admirable. They need to be up around 200 for 4 quarters.
Absolutely, and if it's that sort of game, it suits them perfectly because they can handle it. They handle the pressure. They've handled the pressure better. All of those close games that they've won, the reason they've won is they've handled the pressure better than their opponents. And they are still a team that, on their day, they can and have beaten everyone.
Yeah, they take enormous confidence from that, wouldn't they? Because it is the intangible. It's going to be a great test, guys, we always say, come to finals, percentage is a great leveller. Yeah. So Geelong have been about 160% the last 6 straight weeks. Collingwood about 105%. And so it's going to be interesting to see where that comes into play as well, or whether Collingwood just continue on this charmed run. And early in the season, remember too, Craig McRae only 3 games into his coaching style. They wouldn't have quite understood what he wanted them to do, the nuances of his game style. They wouldn't have been performing that perfectly, so they'd be a lot better at that part of it. But the contested footy's going to have to be a strength for them.
And we're talking about areas. This is Richmond. I mean, this is what we used to say about Richmond, so we don't need to dwell on this too much. Is it an area for concern? Well, they're 4th on the ladder. They're taking on the Tigers for a spot in a prelim, so it's not that big a concern.
They get their best contest player back in too.
And Adams comes back in.
Adams.
I mean, so he does.
He was good against Geelong early in the year too.
Yeah,
He was very good at the contest work.
Well, he'll be just a bonus, and which is a bit like Dusty, you know. You bring these blokes in, whereas once you needed them, now they just add to it. If it gets close,
Oh, gee, I hope it does.
there are things here that Chris Scott will be let's go through some of this stuff here. And fullback kicking is where they've been launching. So first thing is, don't let Dacos get it and give it and get it for a start. That's your number one priority. Don't let him go twice. Don't give him the corridor. I mean, they don't know where they're going in these examples that we had a look at today. They don't know where they're going. So how you're supposed to defend it, I'm not sure. In the end, they get another shot at goal. But if in doubt, don't give them the corridor, right? So just push them wide, and we'll see in the end they get one after. But again, Dacos kicking, and there's just the most famous one of all, of course, as they go around the boundary here with about 20 seconds, 15 seconds to go, and they get it down deep with a couple of bad mistakes, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that a concern, though, Gaz? We come into finals, and we always talk about you've got to be able to score from the front half. Yeah, look at the Collingwood territory game. The last 6 weeks has been pretty ordinary. They're always launching from the back half. So does that really help you coming into finals, or do you lean on this, Gaz, and just say scoring in your final quarters has been really strong?
Lean into it, Brownie. It's worked for you beautifully throughout the course of the year, and just lean into it again. Right, at Freemantle, we've got Tommy Lynch not too far away. Freemantle and the Bulldogs. I did this game 4 or 5 weeks ago. The Dockers just owned the footy. Western Bulldogs look like they're half asleep in actual fact. It's the way the opposition haven't been able to score against them, which has held them in such good stead. Yeah,
well, and the last few weeks they've gotten their own game back with the footy as well. So we know defensively, I mean, at the start of the year they were putting up numbers that were, you know, they were off the charts sort of numbers. But then I think that they lost that balance of defending really strongly, but then defending themselves with the ball. And so they lost a bit of that creative play. So this part of the game's been strong for them.
Didn't they?
Yeah, they slowed right down. But this part of the game's been a constant. So, you know, it stacks up, and it's a really strong part of their game.
You've got to score. In the game that they beat the Western Bulldogs, Rory Lobb was kicking them from the 8th row of the grandstand, and which is not to, I don't want to downplay what they did, because they came with a plan, executed really well, but it's still the area that they've got to work on consistently throughout the course. And it's an opportunity for them back home against the Western Bulldogs side, who are vulnerable against teams who can get it in, get in quick. From a Bulldogs point of view, it's the same old story. Nothing changes if you're a dog supporter. You want to see clearance, you want to see contested footy diff. When it's up around these numbers, then they're in reasonable shape.
Well, they've got to walk away with the victory there. So clearly they've got to win the contested footy. They've got to win clearances, Gaz, and they've got to score from that part of the ground. So last time, look at the name. Bonampally, Libba, McRae, Treloar, Daniel Smith, Dunkley, Hunter. Huge names there. So they've got to actually come out there and dominate and score from those situations as well. Because Fremantle's midfield strong as well. So Tim English versus Darcy. Darcy's going to be a big clash. Going to be here, 2 of the best young ruckmen in the competition. So I'm fascinated by that battle.
Norton going to be fantastic.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to see some of the kids too. So Darcy and Ugle-Hagan in that Western. If Darcy goes forward, you know, you think about a Buddy Franklin in 2007 when he bobbed up and kicked the bag in a final. That was the day he really arose as a player. I just wonder if one of these two guys, as a 3rd or 4th tall, couldn't have a day out.
Well, if it's a Sam Darcy, it's more like Dermot Brereton, who debuted in a final and kicked a lazy 5. So that's the sort of magnitude of that.
Nice.
It'd be interesting to see. He can play forward and back, Gaz, as well. So which way he does go. You know, you've sent over a tallish forward line there at the moment, or do you need to support your defence?
They go how their mids go. Yeah. It's pretty simple.
And the concern for them is defending the ball movement once it does get in motion. And from this point of view, it has been a concern for
themselves.
Yeah, and they found Rory Lobb in these positions, as we said. We spoke about Sam Darcy, where he plays. It's exciting, the concept of he and
Norton and Ugle-Hagan.
Yeah, all those players. It's going to be great. Aaron Norton spoke about the fact that he wouldn't mind having him alongside him on the weekend.
We only really had the one game, and it was really impressive. I think just his sheer height and just being able to stand under high balls is something that not many blokes can do. And he's only going to get a lot better, and it's pretty exciting to play. I know, hopefully alongside him this weekend again. Sam's only that was his first sort of stint down forward last weekend. It's going to be tough for the coaches. Thank God I'm not in those meetings. How they want to work it out, but it's probably a good thing having all of us down there and spoiled for choice. I'd like him down there with me. He takes another big defender away, so I'd be pretty happy with that. They like to possess the ball a little bit. You know, that game style worked for them pretty well. So I think us will just probably have to tidy up on defence a little bit, and so we're not chasing on defence the whole time and being a little bit knackered when we get the ball.
It's exciting to think about. So they're the 4 big games. Hopefully you found something to smile about there if you've got a team or a dog in the fight. John Ralph joins us for the news. No footy on the weekend, Ralphie, but news continues to roll. Essendon coaching jobs at the forefront.
That's right. So that 6-person panel will meet for the first time this week. Of course, the elephant in the room is James Hird going to declare his hand. And so the club will first contact the experienced people out there, the contracted coaches, the likes of Kenny Hinkley and then Adam Simpson. You'd expect they'd say no. Then they'll formulate a shortlist. And so people in the room at the off-the-record anniversary dinner with James Hird last Thursday. Well, Hirdy was asked repeatedly about it. He said you need to be fully invested to coach, which he wasn't just yet. But people in that room felt there was a lot of wiggle room, that he absolutely was not saying no. So the genius of having those Essendon haters like Jordan Lewis and Robert Walls on the panel is it cuts out all the old factional nonsense. So if James Hirdy's the best man again, they'll get him for the 3rd time. Now, there are people very tight with Mark Harvey at the football club who's still there. And so if, obviously he wasn't happy with the way he was moved on from Freo, the Ross Lyon connection, of course. And so all that old nonsense doesn't matter.
So it's a no boat race selection panel.
That's what they keep telling us.
So with Ken Hinkley and Adam Simpson, they couldn't be expected to go through a process as contracted coaches. So if they said, yeah, we're coming, they would be headhunted.
Absolutely, but I still think that Ross Lyon would have to swallow his pride and go through, he might be on the short list, but he'd have to go through multiple interviews.
Let's have a listen to what Ross had to say on the weekend.
If David Barham was to call you tomorrow and say, listen, I heard you on Footy Classified last night, I get all that, but do you want to come in and we'll have a chat?
Well, it's not about what I want to do. I think if he heard me last night, he goes, I could mitigate your wariness and you being cautious. If he could mitigate that, and he gave me great media advice at the end of 07, end of 08, that I carried through. So I certainly respect him, but I'm very cautious and wary.
Sorry, not on the weekend, last week, obviously. Yep. In or out? That's a simple question. You know him better than any of us. Is Ross Lyon in this job or out?
At this stage, I'd probably lean towards out, but I know...
Not definitively?
Not definitively. Because every time I listen to Ross speak, I still hear a coach. So I still think there's a coach locked away within his being that, it's just...
Process, though? Is he in the...
Yeah, look, I think Ross would absolutely be prepared to go through a process.
Simpson, Hinkley...
Well, what is the process? Only the people on the selection panel and the Essendon Football Club can answer that question.
But if he was on a short list, though, say he's down to 3 or 4... he would have to accept that there's an interview process there.
And I think he would if he understood what the process looked like. I think the trouble last time with the Carlton situation was it went from a headhunting situation to a process, overnight. So if as he said, if the conversation shifted and he understood the process, then he could make an educated decision. But I don't think anyone's spoken to him as yet.
The coaching panel is Robert Walls amongst them, which was the Eyebrow Raiser, which I think is great theatre. Our own Jordan Lewis is part of it as well. Now, Geordie had this to say back in April 21. A lot of people have spoken about this. Of course, you're able to say this when he's in media. He's talking about Adam Uze. Confidently say he identified 2 people. Adam Uze, for me, would be number 1. Now, that's his opinion as someone that played under Adam Uze at the Melbourne Footy Club. Of course, Jordan, a man of great integrity, will go and see what's in front of him.
Well, like Rui speaks about Adam Kingsley. Yep. Adam Kingsley was your coach. He speaks very highly of that from first-hand experience.
Yep. That's 18 months ago.
Anyone in this studio asked to be a part of this Essendon coaching panel? John?
I'm too busy just...
No? Ralphie?
No.
Sure you weren't? Nick?
That's loaded, Gary. I was approached, but it didn't work.
How many committees can you be on?
Well, exactly.
You're an Essendon hater, eh? What's wrong with you?
Well, I don't think
Marcus
I hate the
Adams
enough.
was big news this morning, speaking to Chris Fagan, and he just dropped it casually into conversation that Marcus Adams out for the year.
Yeah, the expectation was that he was going to be fit from that concussion and he would have played maybe on Tom Lynch. This is the incident around 20. So it was seen that he hurt his ribs here. Delayed concussion. 4 weeks later, he just hasn't got any better. In fact, he's probably got worse. Headaches, light sensitivity issues, can't really train. And so, look, the club still hopes he can make a full recovery recovery there, but he hadn't even got to ground zero in regards to the concussion tests. You know, as I say, massive out, not just this week, but through the finals.
Particularly given the Tigers and what they can throw up forward at this if they want to stretch them. That is bad news. We're a little bit pushed for time. Laddams, we didn't like this.
No, so this is a VFL game against Taj Woden. He has been handed a 4-week ban tonight by the VFL Tribunal. Now, Taj did get concussion. He can accept 3 weeks by 10 a.m. tomorrow. So just consider, of course, he hit his old mate, his old captain in Ollie Wines mid-year, got suspended. Tom Hickey's missed 9 games with injury this year, and so even though he is playing in the VFL, huge chance that he could have at some stage come in and played a significant role. His season might be done by 10 a.m. tomorrow.
He was part of the Swans team that beat Melbourne last time they played.
Average. Hey, Ralphie, thanks for that. We're pushing on. Tommy Lynch, the big star from the Richmond Footy Club, is going to take your seat and join us. He's in ripping nick. He's in arguably as good a form as he has been for a long time. He left the Suns, we know, to come and enjoy premiership success. He's got one. He's looking for another one. He's going to be surrounded by some superstars in that Richmond forward line when they take on Brisbane Thursday night. He's on the couch. Straight up next.